Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance and asks, does he agree with the advice from Treasury in 2009 that, quote, capital assets are owned disproportionately by higher income families?
Order. I apologise to Dr. Russell Norman, but the carry-on across the front of the House in front of me here will cease. I don't want to hear any more of it. Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance and asks, does he agree with the advice from Treasury in 2009 that, quote, capital assets are owned disproportionately by higher income families? Taxing capital gains would increase the progressivity of the tax system, end quote. And does he support a more progressive tax system?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, yes, I do agree with the statement, and the current system is progressive, where the top 10% of taxpayers pay 74% of net income taxation.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Minister agree with comments by Auckland University Professor Craig Elliff, where he says that under New Zealand's present tax system, it's wrong that a salary earner pays more than $30,000 tax on a $100,000 salary, while if a person receives an income of $100,000 from capital gains, they pay no tax? How can that be a progressive or fair tax system?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, in the first place, it's not quite correct. There are a number of people who do pay taxation on capital gains, and the member may find that he wants to support the budget, because in the budget we intend to make some moves to ensure that the effective tax rates on property are increased, and as the member has pointed out, property tends to be disproportionately owned by higher income families, and that is why higher income groups will find that tax reductions may be offset by changes in the taxation of property assets that they own.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does he agree with pretty much most of the Treasury paper and many of the tax experts on this issue that if you want to target the capital income being earned by the top 10% of New Zealand households, then the simplest and best way to target that is a capital gains tax excluding the family home, and that would actually achieve a much more progressive and fair tax system?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as was evident from the tax working group and the Treasury advice, that is an arguable proposition. The government made the decision not to proceed with a capital gains tax for a number of pretty pragmatic reasons, and in the budget we'll announce what measures we did proceed with.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, with reference to the budget, will increasing the GST to 15% and dropping the tax rate to 33% make our tax system more or less progressive?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the member will just have to wait and see for the budget. But what I would say is that all tax measures should be taken as a whole, not just one or two measures taken as an indication of whether progressivity has increased or decreased. In the government's view, the tax package that will be presented is fair.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is John Wally from the Manufacturers and Employers Association, is he not right when he says it's difficult to see why a capital gains tax is so politically untenable in New Zealand when it would both make housing more affordable and help create jobs and real wealth? Is Mr. Wally not right, and why does the government not embrace this very sensible measure which is missing from our tax system?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, in the first place, the government is putting together a package of measures designed to increase the performance of our economy, because that is how we get growing incomes, more jobs and more investment. That is the focus of the tax package. As I said before, there is plenty of arguable propositions about how to tax capital in New Zealand. We don't have a comprehensive or tidy system for doing it. The government has made some pragmatic decisions about what we will do, and they'll be announced on Thursday.
That brings to a close questions for oral